Revelation 12:11. And they overcame him, the devil, by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And they cared not for their lives, even unto death.
All right, Mondo, can you tell me what happened when you were 11 or 12 years old?
Yeah, so I was 11, 12 years old. I was really seeking a mentor for my life, someone that could take me under their wing, because my dad had committed suicide when I was 6 years old. And so to have that fatherly figure in my life would be vital for me. And one of my cousins would kind of take me under his wing, and we'd go fishing, we'd do all these great things together, thinking that I was maybe finding a father figure, a mentor in him, just to later have him sexually abuse me. And that took a real toll on me, and it put a lot of things seemed broken. They seemed like I would have to put things together and heal from certain things that I wasn't sure what it was going to take. But as I'm moving on and moving forward, and then the direction that it would take me next, and the very thing that would happen next was,
I was made to testify. I was born to fall in love. We were meant to glorify the King that stands above.
All right, so I wanted to give you a scripture tonight that really establishes our series, and it's really relatable to regardless of who comes to the platform, right? The scripture is found in John 1:5, and it says, "And the light never fails to shine through darkness, light that darkness could not overcome." And what I love about this scripture is, even in the midst of when Chris was giving us his testimony, he was saying, as he was practicing being a Satanist, right? He was practicing being a Satanist, that he still heard God say, "You can't keep her from me." And that's a light that darkness cannot comprehend. The light of Jesus, the light of the power of God, will penetrate through any dark area in your life. It's that powerful. And it doesn't matter because, and when that happens, the darkness cannot comprehend it. Okay? So this is what I want from you tonight. I want your attention and I want your respect. Okay? So if you feel like you're going to be next to someone that's going to distract you, I would encourage you to find somewhere else to sit so we don't have to call you out. I don't like doing that, okay? I think it's a mature group, so I appreciate your attention. Are you excited about tonight's guest? You're excited. And you don't even know who it is, but you're excited. So what I want to say a little bit about this person is I've known this person, y'all, for a really, really, really long time. Like, I'm thinking over 25 years, and I'm probably falling short in how long I've known who this person is. And what you're going to hear tonight is just going to be an amazing testimony, something that you did not expect. And just when you didn't expect what you expected last week, because you didn't expect to hear that, you're going to get something tonight. This is someone that I really look up to, and I really, really enjoy just getting to work with her day in and day out. You guys, give it up for Pastor CG.
Letting go of every single dream.
Awesome.
I lay each one down.
Yep, you got your mic?
Got it.
Okay, you should be on.
Okay, sweet.
Are you nervous?
25? You said 20. You've known me for over
Over
25.
it has to be.
It's maybe 23, 24. But
No
yes.
way. CG, I was like, there's no way it's that. Because the last church we were at 19 years.
I'm not as old as you're making me out to be.
Okay. First of all, I just want to state for the record that I didn't bring up any age. You did.
I'm just saying. I was probably
Okay. How old were you when we were doing 1230?
14 or 15.
Okay. 14 or 15. What year was that? I'm going to give you, you do the math because I'm not going to do the math. I can't do math or spelling. Ask some people. 40 years? Oh, no, we're not looking for total. Like,
Yeah.
you were 17.
So, and I'm not 40 yet, Reese.
Yeah.
I'm close, but I'm
Reese?
not 40 yet. So,
Okay. So
yeah,
do
but it
the
was
math.
a long time.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Okay. You want to fight? No, just kidding. All right. So
Yeah, that's one way we can start.
tell me what, I just want to, like, what were your thoughts when I came to you about this?
Well, so you asked me, you told me about the series, and you said we were going to be doing a new series at Youth where you're going to be asking people about their stories and their testimonies, and it's called Testify. And I said, yeah, that sounds cool. And you said, what do you think about it? And I said, I like it. And then you said, well, what do you think about being one of my guests? And I was like, me? That was kind of my first thought. And then I was honored that you would ask me, and I would look forward to getting to see you guys and stuff. But I also immediately had the thought that it would be interesting that you would ask me to share my testimony or to share my story, because for the longest time in my life, in my teenage years, young adult years, I felt like I didn't have a testimony. I didn't have a story. Especially when you hear somebody like Chris's story, I would think, well, I don't have a story like that, so I don't have a testimony.
Right.
And now I know that to be different. I know that I do have a story, and I know that God has done some incredible, amazing things in my life, even if they don't look like somebody else's. But so yeah, I thought it was kind of crazy that you asked me.
Yeah, I did. I mean, God is good. So tell us a little bit, CG, about your family.
So my family, I'm married to my first and only boyfriend ever, Clay Harden.
We'll get to-
I think
We'll get to that later.
he's pretty awesome.
We're going to get to that juicy story later.
And I think he's pretty stinking cool. And then we have a little boy, Case. He's 4 years old.
How long have
and
you been married?
12 years.
12 years,
In
okay.
December.
Okay.
It's almost been 12 years.
All right, and you have a son?
Yeah. Clay always likes to tell people when you ask, he'll say, it feels like 5 minutes underwater. And then I'm like, oh. But he's kidding.
His sense of humor
better
is
be.
amazing. All right. CG, if you had to eat
Oh,
the same food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Mexican food.
All right. Yeah. Is there a favorite in Mexican food? What's your go-to? Like, I know you like it all, but what's your
do.
go-to? What do you order the
Just
most?
probably some red cheese enchiladas, as long as it's really good enchilada sauce.
All right. Do you like spicy stuff?
Yes.
All right. Hey, do you like eggs?
No.
She doesn't like eggs. Yeah, it's
Oh.
weird. It's so weird. I know. Well, we're going to pray for y'all later that don't like eggs. All right? It's okay. CG, do you have a favorite football team?
Well, so I feel like I have to pick this team because it was my dad's favorite team and it's my husband's favorite team. I like football, but I don't really watch a lot of football.
Right.
When Brian Urlacher played football, I was a Bears fan, but he
Okay.
no longer plays for the Bears, so I'm not a Bears fan. So I feel like I have to pick the Cowboys. But I know, but here's the deal. It's not
All right.
because I'm like this hardcore fan.
Yeah.
I just feel like I have to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I bet you didn't think you were going to get attacked that quick.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Welcome to youth.
I know. That's why I'd like set that whole thing up, hoping I'd get a little bit of grace, but I guess I didn't.
CG, how long have you been part of Cowboy Junction Church?
So I was actually a part of the very first service that took place before it was even Cowboy Junction. It was at the Cell Barn. It was in 1996. I was 11 years old. It was Crystal Lyons was our guest speaker. And because my mom had a really big part to play in starting Cowboy Junction, so I've been here since the very beginning. But I've been a part of staff. I was the first youth pastor at Cowboy Junction Church. And I started as a full-time staff member in 2018. No, 2008. 2018 wasn't very long ago. 2008. So I don't know the math. Reese, how long ago was that? That's how long I've been on staff at Cowboy Junction.
Give me the different roles that you've played.
Like on staff?
that you've done? What's the different hats that you've worn at Cowboy Junction? So you
So-
said youth pastor.
Yep, started as the youth pastor. You guys have it really, really good, by the way. Used to back in the day, we met in the barn in a little bitty tiny tack room. It wasn't even as big as this stage, and is cinder block walls, and spiders constantly were crawling down the walls. It was dusty, it was gross. We had about 8 kids, and that's where we met. But anyway, we did eventually get to start meeting in here on Wednesday nights. But I was the youth pastor, and then I moved into an administrative type role as an administrative pastor, and then I moved more into the connections director department, which meant I got to help Pastor Ty oversee hospitality, next steps, stuff like that. And as of just a few months ago, I'm the generations pastor, which means I get to oversee Kids Church, JCA, and hang out with you guys sometimes.
Yes. She oversees youth. She's so humble. She oversees me. She's my boss, y'all.
Yeah,
okay?
because he's really hard to keep an eye on.
It is. It's really weird. I feel like she's getting back at me for all the reminders of 12:30 where we wouldn't let you into the meetings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think she reminded me that of the first year that I was here. Like, do you remember when you guys wouldn't let me come into the meetings? We had a youth group years ago, and CG was really young, and she was too young to be part of those meetings, and so she had to wait outside.
I had to sit outside,
Yeah.
and
And she
I'm
just,
over it. I've forgiven.
Yeah, she did. It took her about a year of mentioning that since I got here, and I was just like, CG, because we made you sit outside, look what you've become. You know what I mean? But it's interesting because we're going to talk about the waiting. It's interesting that you had to wait outside.
I did. I had to wait. Yeah.
Tell me, what was life like for CG growing up?
Okay. So I grew up in Lee County. I was born in Hobbs, raised in the Lee County area. My family moved to Oklahoma for 3 years when I was in elementary school. But so for the most part, most of my life, I've been right here. Have a mom, a dad, a little sister. Growing up, I now have 2 little sisters, but growing up, it was me and my mom and dad and my sister. But my dad was a professional rodeo cowboy, so he spent a good portion of his time on the road. His summers, he was gone usually from, mid-April till October, September, October. And so we didn't see him a whole lot. And when we did see him, it was a real quick come in for the weekend kind of thing. But my mom has always just been an incredible leader of our home, an incredible mom, all the things. And then my little sister has always been a little sister. So there's that. No, but I grew up in church. My parents didn't know the Lord until I was born, and that was when they got saved and gave their hearts to God. And once they did, they started running hard after him, and so they had me in church pretty much every time the doors were open. And I got saved when I was 7.5 years old at a church in Lovington. It's now called Living Waters. Back in the day, it was called Gospel Lighthouse. And my my kids' church pastors were Raymond and Gina Anderson. And I remember the day. I remember so much about that moment. And I gave my heart to God, not knowing exactly what that meant. I just knew that I wanted Jesus to be a part of my life, and I wanted to follow him, whatever that looked like. And so, yeah, I was in church pretty much every time the doors were open, and we rodeoed. That was kind of what my family did and what we were known for. I spent a lot of time roping, running, or tying goats. I say running barrels, not a whole lot, just a little bit. But junior rodeoing, and then eventually played basketball a little bit, and that was kind of how I grew up.
So you were a Wildcat.
I am a Wildcat, yes, sir.
We have any Wildcats in the house? No Wildcats in the house? No
What
Lovington
in
people?
the world?
Wow, that's interesting. They're not here tonight. All right. Do we have any Hobbs Eagles in the house?
Wowzer.
Oh, listen, I don't know where your fan group is
No
tonight, but
cats.
No
kidding.
we have a few pictures here that we wanted to show of CG, and I just wanted to elaborate on some of these pictures of CG with her dad. When
Bless you.
and I think there's one more where she's on a horse and doing some barrel stuff. Yep, there she is. So I want to tell you guys something, because when CG talks about her dad being a professional rodeo. So he did roping, correct?
Yes, sir.
So he was a 13-time, is that?
18.
Oh my gosh, I lost count. 18-time roping champion, okay? What you have to realize when I say that, CG's dad was a professional athlete, okay? A professional athlete who, I mean, different sponsors, right? Like, it was like big time. And so just to let you know how much big time it is, he recently got inducted. I'll let
Yes,
you talk
just
about it.
this last weekend, he was inducted into the National Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that's pretty. So I know that is such an amazing pinnacle thing. But I think about what was that like living in that shadow?
Well, I wanted to rodeo. Like, that was what I wanted to do. I loved rodeo. I loved to rope, and I loved my dad, and I wanted to be a lot like my dad. My dad, the event that he does is called steer roping, and back, rodeo's changing, and now there's more girls' events kind of happening. But back in the day, you either were a guy and got to rodeo professionally, and the only girls that got to do it were barrel racers, and I wasn't really a barrel racer, and so I was like, I'm going to be the first female steer roper to ever make the finals and win the world and all the things like my dad. I wanted to be like my dad. I would even practice. My dad's kind of got, I call it a strut when he walks. He's like got this funny walk, and it
Wait,
kind of looks a little bit like a limp.
Can you do the walk?
Well, it's been a while, but
Let me see.
I've
Yeah,
already-
let's
yeah.
see. Let's do this
let
strut.
me think it.
Do this
Just
strut.
bring it out.
Okay.
But he kind of like drags on his feet like this.
That's
and so
gangster
it
right
looks
there.
it's the older he gets, the more it looks like a limp. But I would walk behind him and I would try to walk like him, and I loved it. If anybody would see me and they'd think, is that Guy Allen's daughter? I would be like, yes, it is. When they would announce my name at a rodeo, most of the time they couldn't pronounce it. It was like, next up is Siggy Allen, or whatever. But they would say, this is Guy Allen's daughter, and I was always just really, really proud of that. But there was also a lot of hard things that came with it because my dad was gone so much.
Right.
And it was so much of, I felt like, looking back, I think a lot of my identity was wrapped up in who my dad was, or wanting to be like my dad, or also just in rodeo in general and wanting to be successful in that.
Tell me a little bit about, we were talking about the trophy room
Yeah.
that your dad had. Tell us a little bit about that room.
Yeah, so in my house, and I know we'll probably get to this, eventually my parents got a divorce, but before my parents were divorced, we had this whole room in my house. It was like our extra living room, like the living room that nobody goes in kind of room. And it was wall to wall, floor to ceiling, and it had all of my dad's NFR back numbers, which is a really big deal if you make the finals and you get the back number. We had them framed, and we had all of them put on the wall. And then there were newspaper articles, there were trophies, there were plaques, shadow boxes of stuff, buckets of buckles and stuff that we just had all over that room. And it was something that I was so proud of. And I still am. I'm really proud of my dad's accomplishments and stuff. But there was so much of who he was that I wanted to be my identity.
I actually remember, because we had gone over to your house when we were doing 1230, and we were able to ride the horses. And I think at the time he had 13 championship horses. Is that about right?
He had a bunch.
A bunch of horses.
I mean, I don't know if I would call them championship horses, but he had a bunch of horses.
Well, I just meant that they were horses that he used to
Yeah.
win some championships, so I call them championship horses.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean?
Cool.
And I remember, I hadn't been on a lot of horses in my life, so these were some pretty big horses. I was kind of nervous.
Yeah.
So I got on, and I remember your dad. I said, "What do I do? What do you need me to do? Give me some direction here." And he said, "The horse will know what to do."
He did.
Boom! I was like, overdrive. I love it.
Yeah.
And but I remember that vividly. So I kind of remember that room because I do remember the basket or bucket of buckles. Just like, oh, that's nice. They just collect buck. No, they were all stuff that he had won.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the divorce, CG. How old were you when your parents separated?
I was 16 when they got a divorce.
Okay, tell me what that moment was like. How did that impact you? What was your first response in that?
Pure shock, really, because I didn't know. I had no idea. I mean, my dad was gone so much, so they spent a lot of their life separated, and I didn't realize it. But I had no idea that my parents were struggling, or that there was anything going on, or that divorce was even like on the table. Like I had never seen my parents fight, or anything like that. And so to hear it was just shocking. And then of course heartbreaking, and I felt like my world was coming to an end. How would life ever be okay with my parents not being together?
How did you cope with that as a 16-year-old, your parents separating?
I cried a lot, and I'm not a huge crier. I remember one specific day, one of the places that I talked to God the most back in the day was on a horse. I would go get on a horse and go ride, and that was where I spent my prayer time. And I remember just riding and crying and asking God, could you just do a miracle? Could you please let my parents decide to stay together, because then everything would be okay. And so, yeah.
So in that season, you were, what grade would you be in at 16?
I was a sophomore.
Sophomore.
Yeah, it was the summer of my sophomore year.
Was it hard to focus in school with all that going on?
See, these are those questions that you make me go back to that I don't really remember. I mean, I'm sure it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, everything about it felt like earth-shattering. Like you just felt like everything was off kilter.
Right.
So yeah, I'm sure it was.
I want to talk a little bit about CG's dating life. You guys want to hear about
We went
CG's dating
from my
life?
parents' divorce to my
Yeah.
dating life.
Let's talk about
That's
CG's.
quite the
Yeah,
shift.
girls are like, I want to hear this. I want to hear. Okay.
It's juicy.
I first of all, yeah, listen, I have this question, okay? CG, tell us how old you were when you went on your very first date.
I was 26 years old.
Hold on.
Told you it was juicy.
Yeah, hold on, wait a second. I want to make sure that I ask the question right. CG, the very first time you went on a date with a guy, how old were you?
I was 26 years old.
Okay. Tell me about the fake date. Tell them
the
about
fake date.
the fake date.
The fake date.
How old were you with the fake date?
I was probably about 26. It was,
Okay.
It was all around the
All right,
same
even the
time.
fake date. I was just trying to get something like maybe a little bit sooner it happened, but I didn't
No.
even know it happened. Okay, tell us
Nope,
about the...
had a good friend invited me to church, met him at church one night. It was like, I thought we were just going to church. And then afterwards we went to eat, and then he paid, and then he's like, like this is like a date since I paid. And I was like, you tricked me. That was not fair.
Yeah.
I didn't agree to that.
You didn't
so
count
I didn't
it as
call
a
it as
date?
a date. No.
All right, so you got catfished in a way. All right.
Yeah.
Even though you saw the fish, I don't know. Okay, so 26 years old. I'm going to ask this question because why did you intentionally wait till you were 26?
No.
That wasn't.
That's a silly question.
I didn't know. Like the Holy Spirit told me when I'm 26, I'm going to go on my first date.
No.
So this wasn't like you didn't want to go on a date.
Yes, I wanted to go on a date. I definitely, yes.
When
I
did you
not wanna wait
start
that long.
the idea of wanting to go on a date? It was sooner than 26.
Well, yeah, all my friends had homecoming dates in 6th grade, or whatever. So I wasn't I didn't think to tell you this, but it was a rule in my home. I don't know how many JCA students are out here, but they probably know this rule. But it was a rule in my home that we weren't allowed to date until we were 13. Like, that was just the rule. It was, and I don't know what I thought. Like, I think I thought that when I turned 13 that all of a sudden, like, the guys were going to start coming and knocking on my door or something, and that didn't happen. But there were guys in high school or junior high or high school or whatever that, you know, all my friends were dating. It wasn't that I was like, oh, I can't wait to go on a date or I can't wait to have a boyfriend. But it was because, like, everybody else was, that there was a bit of me that felt like, well, I probably should be wanting that too. And so there were certain guys that I would think, well, they, you know, I would either be attracted to them or think, man, they're a good guy, or they're a Christian, so maybe that would be somebody I would be into, you know, or whatever. But those were never the guys that asked or pursued me. It was the guys that I was not into that might ask.
Yeah.
And so they were usually a pretty easy no,
Right.
you know, for the most part. And so, but so then in all of that time, when you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you feel like you kind of do want to go on a date or a boyfriend, or, you know, like get married someday and all that stuff, and that isn't happening, and the guys that you do like aren't asking, it does begin to make you feel like, gosh, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, how ugly am I? Like, is that, those were the feelings, those were the things that I would begin to think and feel in that season.
So that was a struggle for you, because, and so in that season that, okay, so you're wanting today, but it's not happening, you're not finding the right person. Did you ever set, like, these are my expectations if I get the opportunity to date?
Oh, did I? Goodness gracious, Mondo.
Yeah?
If I only, yes. So not only, I had the whole, like, list thing. One of my college leaders, youth leaders, I remember the day she set us down and she said, okay, I want you to go home and I want you to make the list of everything that you're looking for in a spouse, in somebody that you're believing God for. And I'll never forget the day that I turned in my list. I couldn't wait for her to see my list. Like, it was a good list. And I brought my list back, and I'm like, I have all the things on it. And she said, now, I don't want to see your list. And it broke my heart. She's like, I want you to know that everything you're believing for on that list, the person you're believing for is believing for those same things in you. And it completely shifted. Now all of a sudden, I'm expecting all of these things out of a husband, out of a spouse, and realize that I should be believing for somebody who's praying those same things about me. Mm. And what is God going to be doing in me that he's praying for and that he's believing for? And so that totally shifted. But yes, I had a standard. There was a guy that I had known most of my life that in high school, like, I had a huge crush on. And I was like, if a guy can't treat me like this guy, then I don't want anything to do with him. And
that's a lot of pressure on a guy.
It is. I'm sorry, but he was a good one. And he knew how he was a gentleman. He was kind. He loved the Lord. Like, just all of those things.
Yeah, I just want to give a disclaimer. Like, you're not talking about Jesus.
No.
Okay,
No.
This is an actual guy.
Yeah.
It's just everybody's like, she's probably gonna say Jesus. Okay?
No. But like, he was so kind to me. He was respectful. I knew that he was a good friend, and it was like, my mom, seen her go through a divorce, she would say, I would rather not have what I want than have what I don't want. Mm. And so I felt that was what I was believing for when it came to marriage, is I would rather believe for something and have something that I want than be stuck with something that I don't want. Yeah. And so that standard was something that I stuck to in my life. And so this person, it was a high standard, but it wasn't that I was believing for that person, although there was a little bit of that. Right. It was more like he was the standard.
So CG, one thing, she was a guard, okay? She was a guard. She told me this story. I think it was in Taylor Middle School. She didn't date, but she was a guard because
Oh,
Taylor Middle
You're gonna tell this
School
story.
had. Yeah, I'm going to tell this story because it's juicy. She was a guard for the Kissing Corner. Wait, how many of you here know about the Kissing Corner? Okay, there's
Adam
one
does.
guy. We're going to talk to your mom after this, okay? There's one person. Okay. Okay, CG, tell us when you were in middle school at Taylor Middle School, tell us about the Kissing Corner.
Yeah, I don't really even if I fully understood what the Kissing Corner was, but I had a friend who liked to spend time in the Kissing Corner, and so she would ask me if I would watch for teachers to make sure that they didn't get caught in it was like the little corner. I doubt she ever even kissed a guy in the corner, to be real honest, but I was supposed to guard the Kissing Corner.
Okay. So,
I've asked the Lord to forgive me for that, okay?
Yeah? Okay. I mean, it's between you and God, girl. All right. So, 26 years old, you go out on your first date. Show us the picture of CG's first date at 26 years old. All right.
Yes.
All right. Now I want you to show us the picture of CG's wedding picture, your wedding picture. So you same dude.
Same dude.
Same
yes,
dude.
Same dude.
Like my boy up here was like, same dude?
Yeah.
So you married the first guy you went on a date with.
I did.
That's pretty awesome. I'm just going to tell you, I think that's very awesome. That's so uncommon. So in your story, you marry Clay and you go on this journey and you want to begin life. And tell us about the idea of you guys wanting to start a family.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys. Some of you may be a little too young, but I wouldn't be surprised if almost every girl in the room has done this to a degree. You feel like, okay, by this age, I'm going to be married, and then by this age, I'm going to have kid number 1, and then by this age, I'm going to have kid number 2, and then, you know, those kind of things, like you've got your plan figured out and all that. And so I did have that. 26 was a little older than I thought I was going to be when it came time to get married, you know. But when it came to kids, it was Clay and I had talked about how cool it would be to adopt someday. We thought, man, it would be really cool. But our plan was we're going to have maybe a kid or 2, and then we'll talk about adoption. And that's just not really how our plan went. When we decided that we thought, okay, we're ready to start a family, and that didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. We got to a point where we had to decide what we wanted to do, and decided to pray about it, and adoption is what we decided to pursue.
Was that a hard time for you, CG, knowing that you were expecting, like, to start a family and you couldn't?
Yes, absolutely. I think all of those times in your life when you feel like you have an expectation of the direction you feel like you think your life is going to go, and that's not how it ends up going, there was so much disappointment. There was so much frustration. There was questions like, you know, just kind of like some of the same questions I had while waiting for a spouse and believing for a spouse, like, what's wrong with me? You know, God, can you hear my prayers? I don't know if y'all have ever felt that way before. So yeah, it was a really hard time.
So an opportunity came. You guys you position yourself for adoption, and tell me about the first story. You guys are like, so you have these books, right? And the mom is examining these books of
Right.
your life, you and Clay, and what's going on. Tell me that first experience for you and the excitement that you were feeling.
Yeah. So adoption is a crazy process because, like, there's all this paperwork and stuff, and then you have to, we had to go to doctor's appointments, and we had to, there's like, I mean, it is a process. And then once you finally get all your stuff approved and you're ready and home study approved, then you're like on the list, and now you can be matched with a birth mom. And so we were finally done, months, like 6 months worth of all of the stuff, the paperwork and all the things. And it was like we had our stamp of approval, and we were on the list and able to be matched with a birth mom. And it was right before Christmas, and it's like the first time, and we find out that our book is being shown to this birth mom, and a baby had been born that day. And if this birth mom picked you, then you had to go that day. And all of a sudden, it was like a roller coaster ride. It was like, oh my goodness, like we may have a baby like today. And we got so excited, and we were nervous, and where are we gonna go, and how's all this gonna happen? And then about, I don't know, it was probably 2 hours later, we get in the little group to check the status, and it says, birth mom has chosen a family and they've accepted. And it was like the worst rejection I think I've ever felt in my entire life. Like, just all the air went out of the room, and it was like, she didn't pick us. And it was heartbreaking in that moment.
So how long would it be from that moment until you would be selected as parents?
Almost a year and a half later.
Okay. So in that process, were there other opportunities that didn't happen?
Yes, several.
So it's just like experiencing that over and
Over and
over
over.
and over. And then the moment came,
Yeah,
and you got a call.
yeah.
And I think we have a picture of the day that you guys are, I think you're holding for the first time, right? Is this the first time?
Yeah, so this is a really, really cool special picture because that's us meeting Case and holding him for the first time. And his birth mom is the one that took that picture
Oh, wow.
and sent it to us.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so awesome. And then, so there's a thing. I wanted to ask, is there anyone in the room that's adopted? You're adopted. All right. Awesome. Yes, that is, I just think it's so amazing. I love the connection because through Jesus, we are all adopted
That's right.
into his family and because of what he did. So you have a day in adoption that's called a Gotcha Day.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what is Gotcha?
So I don't really know who named it Gotcha Day, but the day that an adoption becomes final. So like when Case was born, he was born in June, and you have a 48-hour waiting period until the birth mother signs her rights away, which means if she changed her mind, she could keep him until she signs those papers. And then you wait it was 6 months until the finalization hearing. And until that 6 month period was up, he belonged to the state of Texas. That's where he was born, and if you were to, if something were to happen, he belonged to the state of Texas. And so at your adoption hearing, at the finalization hearing, that's the day that he officially and forever became ours. And he no longer belonged to the state of Texas, but he was going to be a Hardin forever.
So here's a picture of that Gotcha Day. And CG, what was that day like for you?
It was crazy emotional. I hadn't been really emotional for those 6 months, and I feel like it all kind of bottled up for that moment. The attorney, we had to stand and, raise our right hand and promise and do all those things. And then he asked Clay and I both separately. He asked Clay first, and he said, do you promise to love Case forever, to take care of him forever, and be his dad forever? And of course, Clay said yes, and at this point, I'm already like a ridiculous emotional wreck. And then he asked me all the same things. And gosh, it was just something so incredibly special about it, because it was final and he was ours forever, but I couldn't help but also think about my adoption into the family of God and how everything changed for Case. Like, you guys, Case scored. He's got an incredible family. He really does.
He does.
And he's got the coolest mom and the coolest grandparents and an amazing church, and he's so loved, and he hit the jackpot, like he scored. But I couldn't help but think, like, as a child of God, I scored. Like, I am adopted into the family of God, and everything changed about my name, about my past, about what my identity is in, about who I am to become, my inheritance, all because of what God did for me.
You were in this wait, like your life was about waiting. You wait, like just waiting and waiting and waiting, but then God was faithful. Waited. I mean, you 26, you were waiting and you waited, and God, did it happen in the way, CG, that you pictured in your mind, this is what my life's going to be like?
No, not one bit of it. Whether from my parents getting divorced, never would have dreamed, to waiting so long to get married, to waiting to have a family. Absolutely, none of it was how I would have written the story.
So we have some pictures of the family, a few pictures of Case Man is right there with mom and dad. And I think there's a second one. Yeah. Well, that's Case Man. He is cool, y'all. I'm going to tell you, he is the coolest kid. You know, it's probably because of his parents.
That's right. Good answer.
I asked CG to give me a statement. About her life, to summarize, and this is what she gave us. You want to read that for us, CG?
Just a girl that didn't think she had a story, that is now living out a story that only God could write.
Yeah. It's awesome. Did you guys enjoy it? Yeah. So awesome.